Welcome to the Gals Guide to the Galaxy podcast, where a group of gals gather for you one cool thing around our topic of the month. Is it ancient history? Is it breaking news? Is it safe for work? Well, that's up to each gal. All we know is that...
Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night.
Well, Lisa, it has been fantastic to have you on the podcast all October long. Thank you so much for joining Bonnie and I.
Thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Yay! We try to make this fun and as painless as possible.
Yes.
Exactly. Well, I don't want to interview you so much as have a conversation. Honestly, because I don't know if I'm a good interviewer. I don't think I am, but I like having conversations.
I like having conversations.
There we go. Yes. So we shall totally do that. But I also wanted to know more about your work with Starbase Indy, because I am a fan and a partial participant, I mean, in relation to what you do, with the Star Trek convention. I've been kind of dabbling and doing little things since 2011.
Yeah.
But you, my dear, go way back. You go back farther.
Just about 5 years farther.
There you go. It's still farther.
Half a decade, yeah.
So when did you first hear that Starbase was like even a thing?
So in 2006, I think it's the only year that Starbase ran commercials, and they had Katie Sackhoff was a guest that year, and she played Starbuck on the reboot of Battlestar Galactica.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yep.
So her face is all over Facebook these days with the new series coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had this commercial that would play on the Sci-Fi Channel during Battlestar Galactica. It was Deborah Downey, who was in one episode of the original series and is a local actress. And I saw it. I'd never heard of it. Mm-hmm. And I saw this commercial and I looked it up. And I decided not to go because I was going to go to Florida that week. Mm-hmm. And then the Friday before Thanksgiving, my friend I was driving to Florida to see called me up and said, bring a coat because it's going to be cold and rainy all week. Uh-huh. And I said, I love you, but I'm not going to drive to Florida if it's going to be 55 and rainy.
That is fair.
I'm going to stay in Indiana, and I think I'll go to this convention because it looks fun.
That is such a serendipitous thing. I'm like, yeah.
And it changed my whole life. My life divides very sharply into before and after on that weekend.
Oh, wow. It's like a tipping point almost.
It really was a tipping point for me. Of all the weird, random things for a Star Trek convention to be a tipping point.
That's beautiful.
It really, it is.
But so when you first started going to Starbase, either the very first time or like if you started going regularly, what was it about it? What did it make you feel?
So I was in my mid-30s when I found it, and I immediately, within hours, felt like these are my people. Oh my gosh. I grew up as a science fiction fan. I grew up reading Heinlein and Clarke and Asimov, and then I became a grown-up and I lived in the world, and I spent, the first 15 years of my adult life without any friends who really were science fiction fans.
Right.
Around a lot of people who do not know what it means to grok.
There you go.
And I went to this convention, and I have always loved listening to long-form interviews, so I got to see actors, and they had this fantastic, overly expensive guest list that year.
Right.
And so it was great to, it was Katie Sackhoff and Jonathan Frakes and
it was.
Yeah. And so the other part of the story, I got to dinner with the stars Saturday night, and I was in love with these people and this experience, and I'm like so excited. I'd never done anything like it. Yeah. And I'm sitting at this table with people who are clearly on staff, and I start asking like, how can I get involved? How can I help? How can I help?
Right, exactly.
Right? And nobody will tell me.
Oh, like it's a secret or something?
Well, and I'm like, are there meetings? There got to be meetings. I can help. Yeah, we're not going to have any more meetings. What mean? What? No, there's nothing you can help with. What do you mean? Well, here's what I didn't know. Mm-hmm. They had this huge, fantastic guest list.
Yeah.
Which was going to cost them a lot more money than they were going to bring in.
Oh, no. It was going to break them.
And they had done that a couple of years in a row, and they kept thinking they could turn it around.
Right.
And so the people who were on staff kind of knew they weren't planning to do it again. Oh, and that's why no one would tell me how I could get involved.
Oh,
gotcha. And I just thought I wasn't cool
enough. Thought you were being like, cool enough, or being like shunned out, or what's the password?
You don't want me to be involved. I understand now. And so I made friends with Kim Huff, who was the con chair at the time.
Right.
And a couple of weeks after the convention, she called me up and we just started chatting. We've been friends ever since.
Yeah.
And so the thing about fan-run conventions, and I've come to find that this is true in that world very generally, is that it is a community.
Yeah.
This is something that nobody gets paid to do. It's part of the fan-run. It's
part of the fan
nature.
part of it.
Right.
Yeah.
It is a passion project. People ask me a lot of times, like, "Will you get paid for all this work you do?" I'm like,
that's funny.
No. And they're like, "Well, then why would you? What are you doing?"
Because you're a fan.
Because I'm a fan. It's like being a deacon in a church.
There you go.
Or coach of a little league team. It's a way of building a community.
Right.
It's a way of bringing my chosen family together. People ask me about Starbase, which is always Thanksgiving weekend, and like, what do you get out of it?
Right.
And my answer has become, it's my way of cooking Thanksgiving dinner for my chosen family.
Yeah. I love that, by the way. I think that's gorgeous because it feels like it sums up the event because it does feel like it's family. Very much so every single year that I have gone. So I love it.
Yeah. And last year, 2018, was kind of a watershed year for us in some ways. We became a 501c3 in 2017. We're kind of changing the direction. And often a thing that happens with all volunteer organizations is some people have to step away. And so in 2018...
And change is kind of hard for some people as well.
Change is really hard for some people.
Yeah.
And so we didn't think we were going to be able to continue.
Right.
And we canceled it. And the community basically rose up and went, "No, don't take it away. Well,
I need this thing.
I want help. Please let me help."
Exactly. Then save this thing if you love this thing.
Right. And you were super involved in that. You ran that meeting.
I knew there was passion for it.
Yeah.
And somebody needed to stand next to you and be like, no, honey. Let them show you they love it. Because you've been working so hard on it and not letting it kill you. And it's trying to kill you, but let them save you.
Well, and the other piece of it for me is I have been in love with this thing since 2006. It changed my life. Yeah. So I have exactly zero objectivity when it comes to Starbase Indy.
And it's fair. You need that person.
Right.
Though. Yeah.
Sure. But also, if this is only a thing that I love, then it's time to let it go. And that has turned out not to be true.
Correct.
And so we have people, and the thing that was really rewarding, I guess, or validating maybe, was a lot of the people. Yeah, maybe both. A lot of the people who got involved in the last year or two have come in and been like, "This is so much fun." Like, yeah, it is. And like,
that's by design.
Yeah, this chosen family piece. I mean, we show up and we work on a thing, and doing something hard with people you like is one of life's great joys.
It never feels like work.
And it's, this is that we do this thing not because it is easy, but because it is hard.
Yes. Go, Kennedy, go.
That's a Kennedy line, right? Still, getting us to the moon, right? But it's true.
It fits this particular situation as well. And it's also, it's to the moon.
Right. Absolutely.
Star Trek in its outer space.
And we've gotten to have some really cool experiences and provide them for our community. Ethan Cohen, who was, I think, 9 the last time we had Dr. Wolf, got to talk to this astronaut and get excited about going to Mars when he grows up. And now he, I'm told, does his science homework more regularly. And, it makes the difference.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago.
If you can see it, you can be it. He saw an astronaut and went, "I can do this."
And had an astronaut tell him, "Absolutely, you can do this."
But you got to work on your math and science, though,
right?
Because otherwise you ain't going to the moon.
Yeah.
Apparently there was like a young girl who's going to be like, they picked her to be like the first lady on Mars or something.
Oh.
She doesn't have good math and stuff. Like, she didn't have to have a master's degree first.
Maybe she's working on it. You're still waiting for your space camp application as well, aren't you? Yes. Tell me, what is one common myth about running a convention that you want to debunk?
So I think just it is both more fun and more work than people think it is.
Right.
And there was a sense, there's a sense that there's like somebody in charge, and it's very much a community effort.
It kind of has to be. There's a lot of moving parts in this.
There's a lot of moving parts. And so for me in my life, it has been a really great leadership lab. It's been a really great, it's been a way to play with how do I come in do something valuable? Right. How can I learn these hard skills?
Yeah.
But you get to own a thing, right? Because for heaven's sake, if you can come in and just take a department and make it your own, we love that.
Right,
please,
exactly.
Please, you know. You know, we had someone on our staff say to someone else on our staff a couple of years ago, and I love this, you know, the person was saying, well, they haven't told me. There is no they. There is only sky above us. We get to make this thing.
I know.
And
it's fabulous.
It's fantastic.
It's a little terrifying of not having that net, but it's also very freeing to not have that net. Like, there's no sky above. There is no limit to you. So the net's not there, and it's not underneath you either. So it's like, you know what? Just try it.
Right.
What's the worst that could happen? You're in a loving,
we don't think about
welcoming. Well, yes, exactly. How much does it cost? Not that much. Try it. Just go. Just go. Just do it.
It's fine.
It's not going to break us. Yeah. You guys work year round though, right?
Yeah, some of us do. Yeah. We have a core staff that works year round. And so we're doing things like figuring out who our main stage guests are, figuring out who our presenters are going to be, working with the hotel, getting our vendors lined up. So we have a lot of those communications that happen all year around.
Yeah.
And then we still are looking for some volunteers and people who are going to come in the weekend of and help us set up our Starship Bridge, which right now is being rebuilt in my garage.
Sweet. How many times do you get to say that?
Right?
There's a Star Trek bridge in my garage. I like it.
Yeah. My brother did a party for his 25th wedding anniversary, my parents' 50th, and he was texting me one weekend. And I'm like, how can I help you? And he said, I just need some sanity. And I sent him a picture. I'm like, well, we're setting a Starship Bridge up in my garage right now. So I'm pretty sure by most definitions, I don't have any of that to spare.
That's fair. That's a very fair assessment. You came to the wrong gal on the wrong weekend for that. But I'm having fun.
I've got a lot of awesome to spare, but not much sanity.
Who needs it?
Right.
Embrace the awesome instead. I think that's a lot more fun. I dig it. So stepping out of Starbase just for a little bit, because I want to get to know like the 360 Lisa. Because people are more than one thing. One of the things we do at the library is we decided to alphabetize our biographies by the gal's first name, because some of them are interested and exploring so many different things. And a lot of times they lose their last name.
Right.
And their last name changes. So you know what? Alphabetize by the first name, because you get to be whatever you get to be.
That's cool.
So I've had the lovely fortune of knowing you for a few years. And I love this about you. And it's also like most women that I also love. You do a lot of different things. And I love this about you. And I find it fascinating. Because I think I kind of do the same thing too.
Yeah.
And it's one of those. So tell me about the things that you do aside from Starbase Indy.
So the thing I might be best known for recently is the professional cuddling.
Yes.
And I got into that because I was doing consent education at conventions.
Right. Which has been a very big component in the last couple of years. Because apparently people didn't know no means no at conventions.
And, and so we've even moved beyond no means no to only yes means yes.
Right.
And all of this is, the world is changing around this very much with the Me Too movement where, oh, wait, that was wrong?
Yes. Common sense. Anyway.
But
yes.
We, for generations have defined power as how many people do you get to hurt before somebody calls you on it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So if we're going to define power that way, it's going to mess some things up.
Right. And you don't know what you don't know.
Right. And you don't.
Awareness.
And so there's a lot of misconceptions about that, and a lot of ego gets tied up in, and a lot of confusion. My experience has been that the fan-run convention world is half a decade to a decade in front of the normal world.
Gotcha.
The normal world.
That makes sense.
And we are struggling to make sure we're getting enough diverse voices with Starbase.
Yeah, exactly.
And, it's something that we're always looking out for because we want to have...
The intention is diversity.
Yeah, it is, because this is... Science fiction has always been about playing with ideas about how the world could be different. And if you look at what's happened in the community over the last decade, the WorldCon stuff...
Yeah.
And with and your listeners may not know what I mean by that, but a couple of years ago, there were some people who went after the Hugo Awards.
Oh, gotcha. I remember the Hugo Awards.
Yes.
Oh, that was the Worldcon thing.
Yeah, the Hugo Awards are presented at Worldcon.
Oh, okay.
Which is, by the way, a fan-run convention. Those people who staff that don't get paid to do it.
Oh, gotcha.
And so, people have attacked this community and said, we need to be the bastion of old white men. And the community has risen up and said, no. No.
Exactly.
That is not what we're going to do. So the most interesting voices working in this, in the literature, certainly are diverse voices. Yeah. And so it's kind of cool to be a part of communities that do that.
Right, exactly.
And Star Trek is really known for that. I mean, if you look at the cast of the original series,
that's what I was thinking of.
For the time, it was incredibly subversive.
Right.
And really not just progressive, but like creating a vision of a world that operates differently.
Right, exactly. To see different teammates and different even when they're exploring other planets, meeting different species and different races, and it's very much what Roddenberry's vision of the future was, to be more inclusive and to be more diverse and compassionate too. So yes, no, I love that. Would you there's a term that I have learned actually just this week. On my lunch breaks, I go and just kind of like see YouTube, and I either go with what it recommends, or I just kind of like put something in a search and I just kind of like go with it. For some reason this week I've been exploring Malcolm Gladwell. He has a new book out, and I have 3 of his other books, and Tipping Point is one of them that I'm going through. But he has this phrase. He calls himself a serendipitous learner. And I'm like, this is exactly what I'm sitting here doing on YouTube on my lunch break, which is just, hey, universe, what am I supposed to learn today? I'll go to, like TED Talks, and I'll be like, which one looks interesting? Sure. Let's learn about cancer today. You know what I mean? Like, I'll just learn something. Because you do so many different things, would you consider yourself a serendipitous learner?
I think I would. I do a lot of listening to the long-form interviews, like on NPR. I'm a huge Terry Gross fan.
Oh, very nice.
And Miss Diane Rehm.
Yes.
And then, although, 1A does a great job. But this sort of listening to people I would never go seek out on my own.
Right.
And hearing them talk in more depth than you can get in, a 3-minute interview. And my day job, I've gone back to work for a corporation for the first time in a decade real recently.
Wow. I know. I'm so impressed.
It's really an interesting transition. It was a great opportunity, but it is my professional career, the one that, pays me money, because money is, we're not at Star Trek yet.
I know. Let's get
there, but we're not there yet. Is designing learning, and typically for corporations. Yeah. And that field has changed so much because of technology now that everybody carries the internet in their pocket.
Exactly. Now they have to know how to navigate it.
Right. And
how to ask the questions to find the answers.
Right. And so the work of teaching people new things has changed from I need to give people information to I need to curate and organize that information so they can use it.
Exactly. And give them the tools to be able to then go on and explore on their own, hopefully.
Right. And being able to make that possible and look at how adults learn versus how children learn, because there is a difference. We have different life experiences. And so all of that is just kind of interesting to me. I have said for a long time that my day job is as close as I have been able to figure out to get someone to pay me to be a student for the rest of my life.
Oh, I love it.
So I do. I love learning new things.
Yes. Oh, perfect. Would you also say that you are working on being a bridge between traditional and non-traditional? Because that's something that I even saw on your website, because you're like, these are the non-traditional things that I do. You're like, but I also do traditional things. And I'm like, I wonder if you think of yourself, because I think of you as a bridge between the two. Like why can't it be both?
Yeah, I do. I think that's a part of one of the things that I do pretty well is I can explain things pretty clearly a lot of times, and I have my toes dipped into very non-traditional parts of the world.
Right.
And then I also enjoy spending time with people who are rooted in that very traditional model, because a lot of those systems are breaking down right now.
Yeah. kind of outdated. They're just not working.
They were always crappy systems,
well,
frankly. And now the cracks are starting to show, right? You know,
right. And there can be panic. Oh, this is all I know. What do I do?
And there's a lot of panic. And so being able to say, okay, but here is why this is different. Right. Here's why this is valuable. Here's how it helps you too. You know, so much of the work that I've been doing the last couple of years has been around consent, and that gets into gender roles. And you know, we talk about toxic masculinity, and it doesn't mean we don't like boys.
Exactly.
But what we do know, there was a study done in the US, the UK, and Australia a couple of years ago, and they found that of the men who were most strongly aligned with traditional gender roles, 40% of them had considered or attempted suicide in the prior 2 weeks.
Right.
Half of the men who die on this planet die by their own hand.
My goodness.
Yeah. And so
it's not
this system doesn't work for anybody.
Exactly.
It has a huge cost. But trying to do things differently is really difficult.
Right. Some people are scared to change again. Yeah.
It's scary to change. It's scary to have only sky above you and to not have a net.
Right.
And to make the rules. Like the one of the advantages of a traditional worldview is the rules are all written down already.
Right, exactly. And if I follow this, I'll be okay.
Yeah, and so looking at that differently is challenging, and hopefully I can help people understand why it doesn't have to be so scary.
Right. You can have one step in the traditional, one step in the non-traditional until you decide.
Right.
To come on over to the other side and make your own rules.
And maybe it works better for you, and maybe it doesn't, but hopefully it does, because
there's choice.
It's more fun over here, I promise.
Absolutely. I love that.
I understand why you think it's fun to just be mean to other people, but I promise it's more fun to do it this other way, please.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, I dig it. Do you want to get back into like Starbase Indy 2019?
Yes, let's talk about that.
Let's talk about this year, because I'm very excited about it. Are you excited about 2019?
I'm very excited. I'm really excited about what her academy is doing.
Yay!
I'm excited about a lot. You are.
Yes.
You totally rocked it last year. Oh my gosh.
We have already developed our schedule. We have sent it in.
Yes.
So that we're going, here's what we're doing.
Yeah.
So her training academy, for our listeners, we love Starbase so much. We want to take a load off a little bit.
We appreciate it. Oh my gosh, we appreciate it so very, very, very much.
So we're like, if you trust us enough, we will run one room and we will program it with enough interesting things and make it interactive and stuff. So that is our glorious skin in the game, and we have a really good time with it, actually.
And that's good, because we really love that you do it. It's amazing.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we don't have a lot of other resources to help, so it's like that's one way we can do it. But what are some of your favorite programs or events that are happening on the Starbase this year, besides Uhura Training Academy, which we know.
That, that's really great. There are some other things we should talk about.
Oh, there really is. You don't have to talk about our favorite child. We know she's pretty.
She's fantastic. We've got so much cool stuff this year.
Yay!
I'm really excited to have Dr. Erin McDonald back.
Yes, absolutely. I missed seeing her last time, so I'm like, I'm not going to miss her this time.
Yeah, she's fantastic. She is an astrophysicist who teaches real astrophysics with pop culture.
Yes.
And everyone told us that they adored her, so we brought her back.
Yay!
Basically, she's bringing Mary Chieffo with her. Mary Chieffo plays the head of the Klingon Empire in Star Trek Discovery.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
And she's fantastic. If you follow her all on social media, she looks like so much fun. And as I was driving Erin back to the airport after the convention last year, she's like, I'm pretty sure she would have a great time at this event.
Oh, nice.
And so she's coming to play with us, and I'm real excited.
Look at that.
And
that is part of the love of this convention. It's like, just come to it, have fun, and then you start dragging your friends to it, because you're like, no, we're going to have fun at this.
Yes. Yeah, and I love that our our big name star guests do that for us as well, because we do provide an environment that's a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. We have a real strong presence of the Klingon language community.
I've noticed that. I felt like it was Vulcan centric, and now I'm feeling like it is Klingon centric. What'd you do?
Well, we brought in the inventor of the Klingon language for a couple of years.
That'll do it.
That was part of it.
The singing contest.
Pop Warrior?
Yes.
She's one of my favorite humans,
okay.
first of all. One of my favorite beings.
Yes, be fair. Yes,
her
exactly.
Terran cosplay is amazing, but she sings songs in their original Klingon.
Yes, I walked by the room and went, "What is going on? This is fabulous!"
And she's got such an amazing singing voice. Her concerts are a little short because there's only so long you can sing in Klingon.
That hurts after a while.
Yeah,
she's mighty but fierce.
Yeah. Well, and this is one of my favorite stories about 2019. Mm-hmm. The Klingon pop warrior went on the Star Trek cruise this year.
Ooh.
And she was in her outfit and she was walking up to meet Mary Chieffo, who plays like the head of the Klingon Empire, right?
Right.
And
Klingon to Klingon.
Right. And she's walking up, and as she's walking up, Mary says, "Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to meet you."
Yeah.
And Jen says, "No, that's not how this works."
She was so excited to meet her.
What is happening? And it
never meet your heroes.
Well, so here's how it turns out. She's been part of the Klingon language community. The translators all know Jen.
Yeah.
And they told all the people playing Klingons to listen to her music for pronunciation.
Oh, you're kidding.
And she didn't know it until Mary told her on the cruise.
That's a major compliment.
And so we are pretty sure there's been some talk on Twitter. Mary's going to get on stage and sing one of the songs in Klingon.
Oh, nice.
I recently met there are two people who are doing the Klingon translation for Star Trek Discovery. Like, this is a new thing they're getting paid to do.
Right.
One of them is teaching a class on cursing in Klingon for us this year.
Yes. Brilliant.
Right? And the other one was at the Klingon Language Institute, and I got to meet her briefly. And
I'm just saying I love there's a Klingon Institute. I'm sorry.
No, I know, right? Isn't this amazing? This is
that job didn't exist 20 years ago.
And it's very much a passion project.
Or 50 years ago.
Too. And at the end of this, they spend 3 days in a hotel just working on their Klingon.
Oh, wow.
And it happens in Indianapolis, so I got to go to the basically closing cabaret.
Right.
And where they perform things in Klingon.
Yes, they do.
And one of the things that got performed this year was the Baby Shark song.
Oh no, not the Baby Shark song.
So let me just tell you my experience.
I might like it better though in Klingon.
So I'm sitting in the audience of this. I don't speak Klingon.
Right, fair.
I run a convention instead of learning Klingon. I'm gonna get there.
You're a little busy,
right? And so they pass out this piece of paper.
Yeah.
And the woman who's the lead translator on Discovery looks at this piece of paper and busts out laughing, and she's got the best laugh. And I'm sitting there with our head of programming, Jennifer Powell, and we're looking at each other because neither of us have any clue what's going on.
Right.
And then they start singing, and she had to tell me what it was because I'm not cool enough to know what the Baby Shark song is.
I only know it like the first 2 seconds because my daughters immediately turn it off.
Right.
They're like, no.
And it's just like amazing.
Oh my gosh.
But the thing that's really cool, again, this science fiction approach of, okay, so if this species existed, how would they be in the universe? What would their view of the universe be, and how would that be different? And so it's a really fascinating community of people figuring out the language. And it's not like there's a video up on our social media right now that is the inventor of the Klingon language telling people to buy their Starbase Indy badge in Klingon.
Yes.
Nice.
And the really cool thing was I asked him at the KLI this summer if he would make that for us, and he likes us. He's been a couple of times.
Yeah.
And so he put his head together with someone else there to figure out how they would say that, because there's always this sort of like, wait, how would they language this before he could? Because I always thought, oh, you can just rattle it off.
Right.
Not even the guy who came up with the language can do that.
Because is there a word for indie? You know what I mean?
Right.
Some of them probably don't have.
Yeah, and he used the Terran word for Starbase Indy, but then what would they say? And so the actual translation is something to the effect of "Go to Starbase Indy or be a disgrace to the Empire."
Nice.
So so this is kind of cool. It's not all Klingon though. We've got a lot of cool science. We have a bunch of NASA people this year.
Yes, NASA.
We've got a presentation. This is maybe my favorite presentation name. The last half of it is Suck, Squeeze, Bang, Blow. Now, do you know what this is?
That sounds. Why can't I place it? That does sound familiar, though.
It's the function of an engine.
Oh.
And so the whole title is Jet Engines 101, Suck, Squeeze, Bang, Blow. presented by someone who is literally a rocket scientist working for NASA.
Sweet. It's not rocket science. Oh, wait, it's rocket science.
Oh, actually, but it is.
That is incredible.
Yeah, and we've got a Purdue professor coming in who's talking about the things that he has done for NASA. Because, something about West Lafayette makes people want to leave the planet. Because Purdue has graduated more astronauts than pretty much anywhere else.
I know. And also Amelia Earhart was there for a little bit, too. She was trying to get off this rock.
Right? It's like, how do we get... Oh, do I have to say I think not?
I mean, but they're really smart, though. So let's give them that. So they're really smart. And then they're like, now we got to get out of here.
Now we got to go. Yeah. We've got a speaker talking about genes, germs, and the curious forces that make us who we are.
Ooh,
so,
nice.
That technology, not outer space, but inner space.
Inner space. I like that.
Yeah,
we have a whole galaxy in here.
Yeah, and so these aren't even the people on our main stage. If you go to our website, you can see our main stage guests, and they're fantastic. It's always great to meet the actors. We've got Tracy Coco, who was in 100 episodes of Next Generation.
Nice.
We've got Chris Doohan, who has been in Star Trek Continues. His dad played Scotty, so he grew up with Star Trek.
Right, yes.
And Mary, we've got Dr. McDonald, we've got the Klingon Pop Warrior, we've got the Shakeups coming. They're a fantastic local band. Everybody loves them.
They're adorable.
They really are.
They're sugar-coated fun.
Yes, they're so fantastic.
Yeah.
We've got Mark Gunn. He sings like sci-fi drinking songs.
Right, exactly. Yes, there we go.
Yeah, so we've got this great variety of sort of main stage guests.
Yep.
We've got all of these panelists that are doing conversations. We've got a writing workshop.
That's right. Is this the first time Starbase has ever done a writing workshop, or is this something that's coming back?
This is the first time we've ever done something this extensive. It's a whole weekend of programming. And you don't have to go do that all weekend.
But you could.
There's going to be a room there all weekend.
Yeah.
And an editor and a professional author and who's sold books, and they're doing this thing that a lot of people are really interested in.
Yeah.
We're going to bring some of the scientists in to talk about how to get your science right in your writing.
That's a common question.
It is. Mm-hmm. And it's a hard thing to do.
It is, yeah.
So we've got a great set of programming there.
Yeah. Well, are you doing it because it's November is National Novel Writing Month? Is that the tie-in, or... Did you not know?
I do know about NaNoWriMo.
Okay, yes.
I aspire to do it someday when I'm not running Starbase Indy, because
November in November.
November is just a deal killer for me. I cannot take on a new project in November.
If you could write a novel pretty much the weekend after Thanksgiving until the end of the month, then you could nail it. No, if you had any spoons left at the end of that.
Sleeping for that
You're in a coma at that point. No, it's fair.
Yeah, I actually have the Monday after blocked in my calendar with the note, please actually leave this freaking day free this week.
Right.
I'm like, no,
don't be driving anybody.
No,
don't be catching in. Yeah.
It's fine. So this is a thing that we've brought because Blake and Deanna, who are running it, run this writing, or Deanna runs a writing workshop with Seton Hill University.
Oh, nice!
And
it's their wheelhouse. They know it. Yeah, they know what they're doing.
Their wheelhouse. And I have met them at other fan-run conventions. They're real involved in fan-run conventions. They do a party called Books and Beer, where they...
That sounds like our jam.
Oh, it's a nice sort of low-key party. If you have been to the fan-run conventions in Indianapolis, you have maybe heard of a Barfleet party.
Yes, big party.
That's a big party. We've had a couple of years ago, Robert O'Reilly told us it reminded him of Studio 54 in its heyday.
I get that feel. Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's the Klingon party upstairs from there that he said was like Cheers, where everybody knows your name and you kind of hang out.
Yeah.
And the Books and Beer party is a lot like that too, more kind of quiet, chill space.
Gotcha.
So we're
got a variety of parties.
We have Drink with a Scientist coming back.
Yes.
This is the Indiana Sciences again, bringing in a variety of people with science backgrounds, and just go buy a drink and sit down and ask them whatever question is in your head.
I know. I love that.
It's a good
That's
time.
Great access.
Right. And it's so much fun to talk to people who are passionate about whatever they're talking about.
Right, exactly. Because passion carries passion.
Yeah.
So even if you're not a rocket scientist, you can totally jam on somebody else's passion for it. and totally dig it. I love that. So this, like, it can't be cheap. I mean, you've got a lot of different programming going on. You've got a lot of people working on this. Now, the volunteers are working for free, but there's still things that cost money. How does Starbase stay afloat money-wise? You know this has got to be a question that people are wondering.
Yeah, absolutely. And we don't have big corporate money behind us.
Right, exactly.
You know, every year we ask, who would you like to see? And people are like, Nathan Fillion.
You're paying for it yourself,
Stewart.
Me too.
Yeah, right? Me
I
too.
would love that.
Yeah. It's a challenge every year.
Right.
Most of our income comes from the badge sales, people who buy tickets to come to the event.
Yes, so buy badges.
So please buy your badges. Buy them early.
Yes, exactly.
Because this is the thing. I had someone tell me this Monday night. She said, before I started working for conventions, I always bought my badge at the very last minute because it's a little more. And I thought, I'm helping the convention by giving them more money. We'd rather have your money early so we know what's coming.
Correct. Otherwise, it's a panic.
Yeah.
You don't know what's coming. So just, it's rather to have it now. What is it? Two birds in the hand?
Yeah, but we like to have that. And nobody who is involved in working on this event as a volunteer is making any money off it. In fact, most of the volunteers are paying full price for their badges and putting extra money in.
Right.
Because, like, if you are running your kid's soccer team, you're buying the snacks yourself because that's just what you do. Yeah. It's that kind of community effort, right?
Yeah. It's even helping out the teachers by getting, extra pencils and school supplies and donating them. You're putting money and support behind something that you love. So,
absolutely. Yeah. And we've been, when we made the transition to being a 501c3 organization, that allowed us to go after some corporate sponsorship. Yep. We also, we're qualified to be your Amazon Smile charity if you use Amazon Smile. If you are in Central Indiana, you can be, there's a Kroger Community Partners thing.
Right, exactly.
And so we do some fundraisers where we'll go to those restaurants that are like, show up and eat on this Thursday.
Show this sheet, that you're with us. And we'll give you money. Yeah.
And so we're able to get some of our money that way now.
It helps. Every little bit helps.
Every little bit helps. We're trying to diversify. We're trying to be able to. So we're trying to do more scholarships so that we can bring this programming to a wider variety of people.
Right.
We are. For the first time, we are not charging for volunteer badges. This has been a long-standing tradition with Starbase Indy. We do know a lot of our staff are buying their badges or making a donation.
Right.
But we have a lot of people for whom that money is a big deal, and we want to make sure we can bring this event to people, as wide a variety of people as we can.
Exactly. It's absolutely fair. I think that's magically wonderful.
Yeah, and when you come to Starbase Indy, if you buy signatures from our actors, that money goes back into the convention.
Yep.
If you spend money in the vendor room, obviously we don't get a piece of that, but it helps keep our vendors happy, and they
if they're happy
to be there.
Right. And then they come back and they get more people to come and be vendors. Yes.
Yes. And most of our vendors are small businesses. They're creators.
Right.
It's a place where you can get unique holiday gifts.
It's Thanksgiving weekend, it's like the shop local.
Right. Black Friday and Small Business Saturday fall on our weekend. Exactly. Come do both things.
I know. I love it.
Yeah.
You can find very good geeky goodies in that vendor room.
You really can. Absolutely.
It is too fun.
It's like a live Etsy store.
Yeah. Oh, pretty much. Yeah. Oh, and also a little bit of a collector's store too.
Yeah.
Because there's some hard to find stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
That is there too. I mean, especially with the Star Trek goodies, because that's the one thing. And I'll be like, all right, so Josh has that and he has that, and that's worth money. What?
Oh, look at that. Who knew?
Just sitting in an attic somewhere. All right, cool. Well, I have not interviewed in a very long while. If you were me, is there any questions that you would want me to ask that I forgot to ask?
Oh my gosh, I think you've done a great job of asking me all the questions.
Sweet.
Maybe more questions than
there you go. Because my nervousness knows no bounds, where it's like, well, no, I want to tell a story and cover the thing. Like, I do research and I'm looking at these historical ladies. I'm not asking them in person. I'm just like question after question.
Yeah, but you don't have to do research because you show up and you're part of our family. Right, so you know this thing.
Yes, I'm drawing off experience sort of thing. So yes. So tell the good people, our good listeners, where can they learn more about Starbase Indy and where can they buy that badge? Because they need to buy that badge.
Yes, starbaseindy.org. StarbaseIndy.org.
Sweet.
And if you put /store at the end of that, you'll go right to our store. So there's big buttons on our website that take you to the store. If
right. It helps you.
But StarbaseIndy.org. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Come play with us on Thanksgiving weekend. It's super fun. I promise it is.
It really, really is. It's fun. It's welcoming. I'm a Star Wars girl. My husband is a Star Trek guy. We are a bi-galaxy marriage.
A mixed marriage.
It's a mixed marriage. It works for us. And so it's one of those things where I was invited and I'm like, you know what? Hey, you know what? I just love anything space related. I love anything movie or TV related. And it's one of those things where I'm like, I love this. And I feel a little bit like a betrayer because I'm like, I know I'm a Star Wars girl, but I really enjoy the environment. And I love the idea behind the show and having it be personified, not only in you all who are running it, but also in the people who are there too. So I just love it.
You know, and we had an improv troupe come in last year and they were talking to us about, well, obviously we'll make fun of Star Trek versus Star Wars. I'm like, except
everybody's heard it already.
Everybody's heard it, but it isn't true.
No.
I mean,
it's not one against the other.
Right. We're all fans of multiple universes.
Exactly.
I mean, I don't know anyone, and I don't know everybody, but I don't know anyone who doesn't like more than one franchise.
Exactly.
People who are science fiction fans tend to be fans of things that cast the world in a different light.
Exactly.
The idea of the possibility. How could the world be different? What would it be like if this were the system?
Yeah.
And what would it be like if that were the system? And so we like these different things. But if you have space for me on the Death Star, I'm probably good right here.
Right, exactly.
I don't want to go live in Pan Am and play the Hunger Games.
Right, exactly.
I'm probably divergent, but probably don't want to live in that universe.
Don't want to try it out.
That would probably go poorly for me as well.
Right.
Firefly, I love the show, but again, there's a lot of dystopia there.
There
right?
really is. They're living on the edge.
Yeah, we've got a lot of properties that are very dystopian futures.
Yeah.
Star Trek is a utopian future.
Yes, it's hope.
It is hope, and it is, humans vision things before they create them.
Mm-hmm.
This is why so much great technology shows up first in science fiction.
I know, right?
So much of it showed up in Star Trek. And now, when in 1966, when that first episode aired, the doors of the grocery store didn't do that thing.
Oh.
Right? I mean, so a lot of this
that they do that thing.
I carry a communicator around, right?
Right.
I don't.
My Laura's smartphone now.
I don't stop and freeze when I talk on it. Might be safer in the world if I did, but I don't. I mean, some things they didn't have quite figured out, but a lot of this stuff shows up here first.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so I'm going to try this attempt of a signature ending question. Because this is the first in a new idea of interview series, I'm going to ask each person that we interview the same question.
Will I get the first one?
You get to be the first one to answer the signature question.
The signature question.
And then who knows, maybe one day there shall be a mashup, you know what I mean, episode
yes.
of these are all the different answers and, diversity, the variations on a theme.
Yes.
So the question is, if you could guide gals to one thing, what would it be? And your answer today can be different from your answer tomorrow or the next day or the next day. But today...
Oh, that's good.
What would it be?
So if I could guide gals to one thing, it would be figuring out what they love in the world and doing more of that.
Yes!
And figuring out who they are and that idea of just putting that out there. Earlier this month we talked about Greta Thunberg and she's
following that passion,
just being who she is. And if people don't like it, then that is not her problem.
Get out of the way.
Right.
Don't stop her from doing it because she's going to be doing it anyway.
Yeah. You are the only you there will ever be.
Exactly.
And so tap into that and just go out into the world and make it so.
Yeah, I like that. Make it so.
Make it
I
so.
see what you did there. You are brilliant. Yes, no, absolutely. Thank you so much, Lisa. I very much appreciate it. Now, everybody go to StarbaseIndy.org and buy that badge.
Please
buy
that
badge.
Badges. Please. I'm working really hard. Please buy badge.
Thank you so much for listening.
For show notes, links, and images from this week's show, visit galsguide.org. Want exclusive stuff like deleted bits and major bloopers? Become a Gals Guide patron today. Thanks for listening.